me introduce you guys to Van LATHAN, who is the co-host of Higher Learning Podcast and one of the most humble people I've ever met, because when I asked how he wanted to be introduced, that's what he said. So welcome, Van. Yeah, have a seat. So you guys, before we get into the panel discussion, we're going to have Van kind of tell us a little bit more about his podcast, what he's up to, projects that he's working on, and then we're going to have a dialogue between just us. So, Van, now's the time to shine.
What's up? How you guys doing? She said that I'm very humble, and I am. But should I move away from the feedback a little bit? I'm getting a little bit of feedback. Go up a little bit.
You can sit right here. You want next to me?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so that's not going to work.
Use this mic.
This is mic? Okay, cool. You guys got me? Yeah, I am very humble. I'm happy to be here in Houston. I love you guys, the city full of beautiful black women. As far as what I'm working on, not too much. Just podcasting with Spotify, taking over. I'm very handsome, and that takes up a lot of my time. And so, to get ready and come out here and do stuff like this, it's very difficult because it takes a long time to get this ready. But no, I think that the conversations that we're having right now in the election season are conversations we should be having all the time. So I'm very inspired by all of this sort of 11th hour wrangling about how our world and our community and our society should work. And what I hope is that this time we won't fall asleep after the election, and we'll continue to have these conversations just like on a random Tuesday in May and on an off election year. I don't have a lot of hope that that'll happen, but I think conversations like this and organizations like this are kind of the first step.
Thank you for our acknowledgement. Am I good on this mic? Yes? No? Yes? 1, 2, good? Okay, perfect. All right, okay, so. Yeah. Oh, can I use handheld? Okay, all right, okay. Hey, don't you got to tease me with a handheld, because I like a handheld mic. Because then I can move and be like, hey, what you said? No, what you said? Oh, okay. All right, so you guys, like I said, Van is the co-host of a podcast. Van is always on the other side where he's the one that's sort of investigating and being in control. So we're going to put him on the hot seat tonight, just on some general questions, nothing personal.
Fantastic.
Yes. Okay. So
you can ask anything you want.
Oh, okay. All right. Yeah. Let me act like TMZ. Boss up.
Who? Where? I've never heard of him.
Yeah. You see, I changed Shade Room. I'm Shade Room.
Yeah.
Okay. So my first question is, now it is so easy to be an expert on social media. Everywhere you look, there's someone who's an expert at something. All you have to do is basically just act like you know what you're talking about. And now people are engaging. They look at you as the leader. So when people look at you and you get backlash on, well, what makes you an expert to be able to talk about political issues? Well, why is he always talking about something that's political? So how do you answer that? And what is your rationale behind I am qualified to be talking about these issues?
Well, I don't really talk about political issues insofar as giving people advice or deconstructing the guts of a political issue. So what I'll do is I'll give broad strokes into the way that I look at the world. And to me, I think a question that we don't ask people a lot of times when we're talking to them about their political affiliations is, how do you see the world? Like, how do you see the world? You see the world as an equitable place where everyone should have an equal opportunity to be upwardly mobile? Or do you see the world as a sort of bullshit American ideal that reinforces the domination of the ruling class that established the country and changed the rules so that they would control the country in perpetuity? So to me, the way I look at it as, I come from a place that's deprived. I come from a place in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. I come from a place that people don't have what they need, So what policies do I need to support so that people get what they need, so that people get what they should have as American citizens? Then you have a framework. So when I'm looking at a political issue, I can't really tell you as much as some of the other people that are going to be up here on like what it takes to move something through the House or through the Senate, and we got to talk to, we got to take the bill and do all that, I don't know that. But I can bring somebody on to the podcast to have that conversation with them, somebody who does do that. And at the same time, I can remind people that a lot of these questions come back to, do you want black babies to have health care or not? Do you want people to make a living wage or not? Do you want people's voting rights to be affirmed or not? Do you want women to have choices in what they do with their body or not? This comes down to like how you view the world. And that to me isn't very hard at all. It's about whether or not you've done the work to really interrogate what kind of society you want.
Okay, all right. I'm an expert too because I'm from Louisiana too.
That's what I'm talking about.
Homa, anybody from Louisiana in the house? We said Houston, but you know I got a sidebar for my Louisiana people. Okay, so the next question that I have, Van, is with you being in California, me being in Texas, we always talk about minority vote, right? We're always talking about black and brown communities. So whenever we're talking about black and brown communities, we're also talking about a Hispanic population. So with us being in these states that there is an influx of Hispanic populations, we often hear about this population going towards the white side and embracing white culture, which is why they say a lot of Latinos are supporting Trump. So what is your opinion on how we can embrace more of the Hispanic population?
I don't care. I don't care. I mean, this, I'll be honest with you. So this is the way I look at it. Allies speak with you and not for you. So, I'm out there in California. I'm on the basketball court. I pass the ball to Miguel. Then Miguel bounces it to Fernando. We're all together. I have to talk to them and engage with them to see what it is that they care about and why they care about it. They have a completely different set of cultural triggers and edicts than I do. They have a completely different set of, there are some things that are similarities. I'll give you an example. So if you go to Louisiana, where I'm from, the servant class of Louisiana, the people that are going to valet your car and bus your tables and wash your dishes and all of that, all those people are black. There's always one black lady with one goal right here. Yeah. And when you get there, say, hey, baby, did you like it? Thank you. When I got to California, those people were all Mexican. So there was a difference in the servant class of the city. And in that you would think that there is a oneness there. But if you endeavor into assuming that, you would be wrong. Talk to people, give them the opportunity to speak for themselves. But as far as me, man, I'm up to my eyeballs in black. And I'm up to my eyeballs in trying to figure out how we keep our community, all forms of political engagement in our community, moving on a way that serves us. So to everybody else, when you need me, call me. But when I think about what's going to happen and who's going to get what they need, I'm thinking about black people. I don't have the bandwidth for anything else. I play a lot of Madden. So when I turn the game off, it's right to black people. And then it's to the computer.
Okay. Thank you for your honesty. And we're going to move on to now, you guys, we're going to have the panel discussion.
Yeah.
All right. So where is my list? Thank you. I had a paper up there and it's gone now. Yeah, let me see so I can introduce the
A little bit.
Do you have the introductions? Okay, panelists, wake up there.
They're right there.
Oh, I'm supposed to be making a thing, and DJ Mr. Rogers gonna play a song for y'all coming down.
It didn't happen. It didn't
Thank
happen
you,
that
Mr. Rogers. Thank you. Thank you. We had a whole thing. Y'all were going to come down Soul Train line.
way. Oh, wow. Got to make do.
Thank you, Mr. Rogers. Okay, the mood is gone now. All right, so let me introduce you guys. So our panelists today are going to be Lillian Alexander. Lauren Ashley Simmons. Of course, Van.
Oh, it's like that? Introduce me again. I don't do this.
Okay. Van Lathan. He wants y'all to catch the Holy Ghost. Okay, and then we have the Honorable Christian Menifee. All right. So I'm staying on this. That's all right. All right, so here is our panel, you guys. All right, so what I want to do is I want to keep it kind of vibey and comfortable for everyone and just sort of have a conversation, more of me saying, what do you think about this? How are we going to fix this? Like, I want us to be able to have dialogue, and I want anyone that has something they want to sidebar or piggyback on from you guys, please, like, come on and say, hey, what do you think about this? Or I would like this to be addressed. So, again, we want it to be interactive with you guys. So, Van kind of already said he's for the people. So, just to kind of go into what are some of the issues and policies that are affecting Black voters this election?
I'm gonna let the county attorney go first.
What's going on, y'all? Good evening. I'm Christian Menifee, the Harris County Attorney. I'm super happy to be here. Look, I think the number one issue for Black folks coming into this election is going to be a number of things, from healthcare to upward mobility to economic interest. But what I've been talking to folks about is Project 2025, right? Because to me, especially with young Black men, right? There are so many young Black men right now who I think are really coming to terms, grappling with, you know, can I support this person? Should I support this person? To me, the great equalizer is Project 2025. To the extent you had any questions about whether Donald Trump is a racist, the policy platform lays it out, right? The interests that are backing him are very clearly trying to end disparate impact analyses in DOJ investigations. They're very clearly trying to remove any semblance of affirmative action. And shit like that is very sensitive to me, right? And the reason is because, you know, I came up here, I grew up in Southwest Houston, you know, underserved community, just like many other people, went to a public school. When I was in high school, I didn't study. I didn't apply myself. I had a brother who was battling cancer. I didn't pay attention. I didn't do school. Got to college, similar situation, didn't apply myself. The only reason I got to the law school that I got into is because Black men were not applying to law school that year. And I went to school with kids who went to Harvard undergrad, who went to Columbia undergrad, who went to Princeton undergrad. And when we got in that classroom, I kicked their ass. I got better grades than all of them because I was able to have the opportunity that I need to have. So when we have people who are trying to run the country who believe that we're all operating on a level playing field and they don't have to answer for one of America's original sins, right, which held people who look like us back through slavery, through Jim Crow, through abolishing all the policies that came during Reconstruction, through redlining. They don't feel like they need to address that, and they want to act like we're all operating through a clear playing field. I think based on that alone, right, it is, in my opinion, anti-Black to even consider supporting such nonsensical policies. But for most Black folk, look, we want to decrease the wealth gap, right? We want the same opportunity everybody else has in this country, but we want our country to acknowledge and answer for the original sins that started us off 10 paces behind everybody else.
And just to kind of touch on that, and we talk about Project 2025, and I think it's absolutely critical for us to bring that up. But, like, it's not a hypothetical here in Texas, right? We've been under Republican control almost 30 years. It's Project 1995, if you think about it. And the way that like politics impacts us, but the way that it trickles down is really interesting, because the things that we're dealing with right now started with like the Reagan administration. Like our schools didn't just become under-resourced 2 years ago. It happened with the slow dismantling of those systems. And so I think right now what we're doing is we've been in like a defensive posture for a really long time. I don't even want to say a grace period with Obama, because I think President Obama is like, his presidency was great. It was a great step forward. But in a lot of ways, it really, I think, for a lot of white people who had not sat with, am I racist? And what does it mean to, like, have a black man in the highest office? It really freaked them out. And we saw the swift backlash with a Trump presidency, because I feel like under no other circumstances would Donald Trump ever be president. Like, we thought George W. Bush would be the worst, most unqualified, the silliest we'd ever get. And then we skip right over that. He's coming down the escalator, and here we are. And now he's selling us gold tennis shoes. So I think it's really being able to say, okay, look, there are so many issues in our community that have not been addressed and have not been addressed for centuries. But things can very much get worse, and we're seeing it right here. Texas is the laboratory. All that crazy shit that comes out nationally, it's gonna start in the South. And because Texas is so large geographically, population-wise, it's a lot easier for that stuff to make it to a national platform. And so I tell people all the time, like, when you're trying to build a movement, you need to come talk to us in the South, because we've been doing this for a really long time, and we know how to organize under duress. We know how to organize, and I'm sorry, I'm a labor organizer, so I'm gonna talk about organizing a lot, but we know how to be able to build a movement when we're like literally at war with our federal government. And so I think it's just the old saying of like, when America catches a cold, black folk catch the flu. And instead of us kind of just being used to shit being terrible, we have to say, okay, enough is enough, and we got to stand up.
But that goes into what my next question was going to be, is, so, like you said, people in the South come to the South, black culture, pop culture, hip hop, all of these things that we're trying to do that are basically like symbolizing black culture, right? So that the problem with the Trump campaign is that they think by coming out and putting Trump in a music video, that means that he relates to the black voters, right? So my next question is, I guess, talking point is that candidates have always turned to hip hop culture for endorsements and support. Many have actually said that this is one of the reasons black male voters relate to Trump. Trump appears to mirror what we've heard in lyrics: above the law, fight the power. So do you think that this is why male voters are turning to Trump, and is there any way to stop it?
I can answer that. So my name is Lillian Alexander. Is it on? Slightly? I'll talk loud. So when we talk about black men, I'm a candidate for a district court bench. And so where black men find themselves targeted, it's funny to laugh about child support in a music video. It's funny to talk about doing a bid in a music video. But it's not funny when you're sitting before a judge who's going to treat you like a criminal. It's not funny when a judge is going to lock you up instead of helping you find a job. So I think what we find is the weaponization of courts. We find the ridicule within the music, but not really talking to black men and saying, you're hurting financially every time they move the goalpost. Every time you think you can afford to get married, you think you can afford to buy a house, you can't. Every time you want to make sure you have some nice drip, you can't. Every time you want to send your kids to get a good education, you can't. They're moving the goalpost over and over and then ridiculing them. It's a big gaslight. So I think what we have to do, especially as Democratic candidates, is talk about the issues without a pander. Go to someone and say, be honest as a candidate and say, it's hard to have 2 children. It's expensive. It hurts. You feel it. You feel the cost. You want them to have things. You want them to have shoes. And to really speak to the fact of you're hurting. We heard a video with the storm today where someone was saying, I can't evacuate. Why are they doing this to us? When we act like black men are not hurting and treat them like this masculine, perfect rap video, then we leave them up for grabs for people who want to sell them a dream. So it starts with us, with just being real with black men and saying, look, it hurts. This is hard. You don't have it all together. Black women are sometimes seeming like they're getting educations easier than you are. Black women seem like they're buying homes at a better rate, but we're not your enemy. So I think that's important and manifest into the courts.
And I also think it's a narrative that we just see when presidential elections happen. Like I remember, and I'm bringing up President Obama again, but when he started running for office, like the new wave was to be like the black conservative. Like that's how you got your bread, because you need a contrasting narrative. And not to say that black, male Trump supporters are not out there, but I don't know none. And I know a lot of black men. Like I know black men that, may be dissuaded with politics altogether. I know some people that may feel apathetic or tired, but I just don't see this like movement with black men supporting Trump. But what I really think, more than anything is Trump isn't really when is the last time Trump has ever been to a grocery store, right? Like he was born into wealth. His children were in private school. He, all his wives were foreign born models or whatever. Like he's not a person that really can resonate with our community, but I think there is a gap in people feeling like, and this is the hard part because I'm a Democrat. So excuse me, I didn't say this. So I'm the Democratic nominee for state rep in a House district here in Texas, in Houston. And a lot of what I hear when I talk to people is they're very frustrated because they don't, one, understand kind of the processes of government, but two, they can't directly connect things that they're dealing with in their life, good or bad, with policies that are happening in the government. And sometimes I don't think as a party we have done a good job with explaining that process. So people will get mad about like, well, what have Democrats ever done for us? And I was like, it's not so much what have Democrats have done on a federal level, it's what is your governor doing here? So when Medicaid expansion happened, that was great nationally. I work for an organization based out of New York. I remember everybody was throwing their hands up, and I was like, y'all, that don't mean shit here in Texas, because guess what? Greg Abbott, one, don't want nobody to have health care, but two, he knows if Medicaid expansion happens, we will tie that victory directly to the federal government, and we're gonna say, oh yeah, Democrats are doing something for us. So it's really having to push back against that narrative and reframe and help people understand this is what government is on a municipal level, on a county level, on a national level, and these are the barriers to access for you, and this is how we fix that, versus just relying on people, us saying we're the good guys. We have to do a little bit more than that.
So we all agree. We all love hip hop, right? Everybody loves hip hop. All right, good, because I'm about to be critical. Okay, so I think that there's something larger here, and we probably need to have more robust conversations about it. Hip hop has, after a certain point, given dueling narratives to Black cultural America. In the lyrics of hip hop, you've heard a lot of anti-establishment, rebellious, anti-authority music, which fills you up with an idea of how you should comport yourself in society. The structure of hip hop is not that. The structure of hip hop is corporate, it's capitalist. There's a white guy at the top of it that tells you how your record's gonna sell. You are encouraged to sell certain types of records. Certain types of records move more than anything. So what that causes is a vacuum between thought and action. So you essentially get a lot of hip hop people, like think about it. When you ask a lot of the rappers, not all of them, I wanna paint with a broad brush, but if you ask, like, you see when you ask Lil Wayne, hey, is there racism? How could it be racism? They love me, I got these hoes. And like, you know what I'm saying? Or when you talk to Young Thug, what do you think about Black Lives Matter? I don't think about it. And the reason being is because the ideals that some of these guys are chasing are very American ideals. The capitalism, their domination, their competition, they're all of those things.
Pulling up by your bootstraps.
Pulling up by your bootstraps.
Now you rich.
All of that, right? And so if we're talking about actual like intellectual thought that has an analysis of a society, there was a time when we had a great many people that were giving us different ways of Black mobility and how to access a higher level of American citizenry. We had King, and we had Ella Baker, and we had Fannie Lou Hamer, and we had Stokely Carmichael, and we had the Panthers, we had Hampton, we had all different types of people that were saying, hey, you do it through legislation, hey, you do it through rebellion and self-determination, and then poof, gone. Jailed, killed, muted. And y'all, what we got in place of all of that was beats and rhymes. And what we haven't been able to do is like really ask hip hop for anything. We haven't been able to ask, okay, what are y'all gonna do? Like, what's gonna happen? Like, what's going on? All of these athletes that we look up to and we make them millionaires and we kill each other over their shoes, and then they say Republicans buy sneakers too. So now what has happened is there's been sort of in the last 15 years, it's been better. But a lot of times we were dragging our feet on what do we actually want. When a character like Trump comes over, he looks like a rapper. He acts like someone that they're used to. They're used to it. They're used to somebody that's all glitz, no substance. They're used to someone who speaks in these weird, unintelligible parables where you're like, yo, is he spitting or is that stupid? You know, like it seems very familiar, and they spent decades worshiping him for all of those reasons. So, like, I think to your point, the black male infatuation with Trump is a little bit overstated, but I think we do have to have a conversation about priorities and about what it means to actually hold real cultural real estate in Black America, and if there's a trade-off for that we can ask better from people. Like, if I ask you about Black Lives Matter and you just sold 6 million copies telling Black men to kill each other, you should have a better answer. And I don't give a fuck how that affects your bottom line. You gotta do better. So,
right, the thing is, they remember how to be black men when they get into trouble, right?
Oh my God, yeah.
ASAP is overseas. He's like, oh shit, Black Lives do matter. Hold on, dog.
Yeah.
Right? All of a sudden they want to return to the blackness. I think part of the major issue why I think you're seeing so many young men, it's not just black men, it's men of all races who are running towards Trump, is social media. Right? Yeah. Donald Trump could have never been president of the United States in the 90s, right? Social media has created this toxic environment for men. And I say this as the father of 2 young boys who I'm trying to be on the lookout for this, right? Where you have idiots like Andrew Tate, right, who go on, get millions of followers, and they just spout idiotic masculinity, just on 30-second repeat, reel after reel after reel, right? And they take that and they regurgitate it, and then these rappers begin to idolize it. Right. And so it becomes a subculture on the internet, and they're all talking to each other. And I think Lauren kind of made this point earlier. I never met any of these cats in real life. And to the extent you do meet them, you know they've never been in a fight in their entire life. Right. But they're out there preaching this masculinity that they believe Donald Trump has. And so I kind of agree with both of y'all. I do think it's overstated, but I think we have to have an honest conversation about the artists that we're allowing to be representatives of blackness. Being black is not a monolith, but whatever your dumb ass is saying is not blackness, right? The people who we let be representatives of our culture and our community, and then also people who are not rappers, right? People who are just, because now, you know, in order to have a following, fame, whatever, you just need followers, honestly, right? The people who are speaking on our behalf with a platform, I think a lot of people are realizing that if you go and you speak on the conservative side, it is a quick bag. Right? It is I'm telling you right now, I could go and coon out tomorrow, and I'm finna have 6 million followers on social media. Easily. All I gotta do is just talk a little bit of trash. Oh yeah, Obama wasn't really about black people. Let me tell you about Donald Trump, right? The follower count gonna shoot up, right? And honestly, it is that same old school Uncle Tom mentality that's been around since the beginning. It's just a quicker path to a bag. And those are the people who I think we have to, in a sense, gatekeep, right, as to who we allow to represent our community in the big stage.
I think it's social media too. You talking about the memification of Trump. Like, he's a very dangerous individual, but like low key, that motherfucker kind of be funny sometimes. Like, that they eating the dogs and the cat shit was abhorrent. It was racist. It was awful. But then somebody put that shit to a bounce beat, and I was accidentally there. I was like, what? Oh shit, this is the dogs and the cats. I think that's part of it too. Like, Black folk, because we have been marginalized and oppressed, gallows humor is a thing for us. And sometimes to our detriment, we will use that same humor to uphold and uplift people who are really, really horrible in our community.
And we have to check who we make a thought leader. So for example, I'm like, Lauren, I didn't do it. I'm the DIM nominee for the 507 District Court. This is a family court. So by trade, I'm a divorce attorney. You don't know how many podcast wannabe relationships are sitting in a divorce attorney's office with no money, bank statements out, crying, all of a sudden have no authority, no figuring it out, and we're listening to them, sharing them, but we're not sharing like our good Taylor, our good Taylor going across Texas, spreading information about voting. We're not sharing Fight Like Lauren. So the way we water them down is we have to share better thought leaders, because I even got caught in it. If you make someone go viral, you make them go viral. The only thing that makes someone have authority is by pressing send and sharing it. It's better to say not interested, mute it, and give it nothing, because the more thought leader that we make them, the more a Ted Cruz can spawn, right? More, we talked about that. You're here because of Ted Cruz, right? Like because you don't want Ted Cruz. Like
we're not saying
you hate
like
Ted
him, we're
Cruz
not
so
saying
much, but that's my point. Ted Cruz podcast is an example of this man will just spout lies, FEMA lies. I mean, all of these things we have got to take back our thought leaders.
So what I want to, hello, can I, okay, I'm from Louisiana, so I can be loud. Okay, so what I wanted to ask, because you mentioned a bounce beat. DJ Mr. Rogers, give us an example of a bounce beat and how you can make something go viral with a bounce beat when you get a chance.
What's this?
Just for the audience.
Now, I felt bad when I was laughing at that because I was like, wait, this is
I'm from Lake Charles.
very embarrassing.
I went to LSU. We didn't do that. You was worried about, that's
Just out of nowhere. Like, we doing a podcast trying to be real serious.
Okay, thank you. We just need a clarification on how easy it is.
That's not how you dance the
to-
bounce. If you're gonna do it, go all the way. I'm just joking. No.
But to your point is that is very catchy, and you can put anything on that, and then now all of a sudden people will be in the club, and it's something Trump said that's playing in the back. So I always talk about social media, especially on Seat at the Table podcast. Make sure you tune in. But can you guys give us some insight into that? Because like Christian said, I have kids. I know my kids are going to school with other kids who are listening to the Trump bounce beat. Now my kid is listening to your kid now on his Apple Music. Now he might have that song on his playlist. So what are some of like the advice that you would have for, because all of us are parents or going to be parents or have grandkids or whatever, depending on how I'm still 20, but wherever you are in life. So what's some advice about that? Like, how do we protect our kids from seeing that?
Take your kids to vote. That's the first thing. Teach these kids that it's a voting household.
So I have a 17-year-old. My son is a senior in high school this year. He won't be 18 in time to vote, but it's something that we talk about a lot. I also have a 9-year-old. And my oldest kid, because I had him young, I was 19, God was like, need an easy child. So he's very much kind of like nerdy kid. He doesn't really like social media. He's not into all of that. That 9-year-old, my little no limit soldier, like she was literally, I was telling him earlier, she had brought me the phone and she was like, this little girl that was 8 years old, she drove to Target. And I was like, yeah. She was like, Mom, I wouldn't have hit nothing. Like she hit a mailbox. And I was like, what? Girl, give me that phone. But it's being able to have those conversations. I was like, that's not safe, all of that. But I really think too, and I've always said this, I, as a parent, hope to be and should be the most influential voice in my kids' like head in life, me and their dad. And so, yeah, they're gonna encounter a lot of nonsense in the world. But hopefully that I've like set the tone and given them a vision and a North Star to like aspire to. When I grew up bougie, like I'm the granddaughter of 3 public school educators, and I always felt this immense like responsibility because my parents was like, what we had to go through and what your grandparents had to go through to get you here, you have an opportunity that's not just for yourself, it's to help people. So I grew up with that. And I instilled that in my kids, like you have something to do because not all of your friends have the same access to resources. Not all of your friends' mamas work from home, even though I'm an organizer and I can be up here all day, every day. And it's really also too instituting that village. Like Lillian is my soror, and we met each other on the campaign trail. But guess what? Like, you're my village now. Christian, you're my village now. So I have an expectation that, like, y'all gonna help me raise these kids.
Van, you my village.
Van,
bro.
you my village. We just met today, but
Nice.
you the village. Holly, you too. But that's also the other part. Like, where I fall short or where there's a gap, I know I have people around me that are doing even better and excelling and doing great things around me that will help be that voice too. So it's not just me in the house, because I'm a little crazy too. So I'm just say that. But
I don't have any kids. I just kept coming up with that $500. But like,
well, you in Texas now, so you better be careful because y'all gonna have that baby.
Years and years and years and years. But it's okay to laugh at that, guys.
That was funny.
Like, it's okay.
Abortion is healthcare.
Right.
It's healthcare.
That's right. That's what we're fighting for.
But I will say this. Like, your algorithm is your responsibility. Like, one time I looked at my Instagram algorithm, and it was disgusting. You know, I'm like, I don't want to be this person. And so I liked dog videos and political videos until I had a lot of politics and puppies.
It was too much twerking on there.
It's a lot.
It was a lot
It's
of
a lot.
twerking.
I miss it. But your algorithm is your responsibility. I think at any time in human history, what you put in your brain and what you put into your heart is on you. What I do know about the young people that I mentor is that they essentially will do what the people that they trust in their lives do. So there are all kinds of people that have all kinds of platforms that are giving fantastic information, and just take the time to do it, or you watch brain rot and then your brain rots.
I limit my intake. Like I've deleted Twitter off of my phone. I only have the app
Good
on my
man.
phone. Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to hit like once I hit like a certain amount of time, I'm just trying to tune out of it. And it's not that I think that it's all negative. I just think that it's very easy to slide into the negative. And also I think it's like incumbent upon us as leaders, right, to start to develop our own ideology. Like I think I said earlier, I'm a Democrat, right? But as I said at an event yesterday, and I see our chairman of the TLBC, Ron Reynolds here, who was on the panel with me, I am not a Democrat who's a black man. I'm a black man who is also a Democrat, right? So I wake up every day trying to have an ideology and like strive towards that, following that. And it is not, just to achieve whatever Democrats are trying to achieve. It is to achieve what I think is going to most help black folks. And so I try to like limit all the outside influence because, my whole Twitter thread is just like, a Republican said this, the Democrat said this. And some days I just don't want to hear that shit. Some days I'm just like, hey, I'm trying to advance something that is unique from kind of the party infrastructure, and I don't need to be corroded by that in that day.
I got it. No, I'm off. Hello. Okay. All right. Great. Okay. All right. This is good. I'll ask a question. Okay. So we've kind of opened up the topic of younger voters, right? Now we're saying that they can be influenced, and we're talking about under 30 voters. And I think that we're kind of in this generation right now of where a lot of the younger voters don't feel that not voting is going to affect them. I got my girl right here, Taylor. She's all across the United States with her van Barb, spreading the word to the younger voters. But a lot of times whenever you talk to younger voters, they're saying, well, that's not going to affect me. Okay, so he's my president. All right, well, whatever. It's not like I'm going to lose any rights because I let Trump get in office, or because I vote Cruz in another term, or Abbott, or whoever else. They don't feel that it's going to affect them. And it's kind of like an entitled generation. So what would you guys say to the under 30 voters that are registered to vote, or because maybe they haven't even voted yet? Maybe this will be their first election. So what do you guys say whenever we're talking about that in the engagement?
You gotta tell your personal story. So I'll say I'm 38. I know Christian was the youngest county attorney elected, 30-ish. Lauren is younger than I. Honestly, when I go places, I'm honest. Student loans, baby. Stress. Childcare, stress. Like when you talk to young people about take the cap off, like dating was hard. Trying to love a black man is hard. Having kids, getting them on time, paying student loans, trying to have some. When you really talk about it and take off a facade of what an elected looks like, because a lot of these electeds, I feel like, could be fake. You didn't know anything about their personal life. You didn't know anything about their struggle. You didn't know anything that gave them skin in the game. You didn't know anything about why they wanted it bad. So when we're vulnerable, I see younger than 30 say, you know what? I don't know about that president, but something about you feels relatable. Something about you is just authentic. It's honest. Your problems feel like something I know I'm going through. Your student loan payment is coming out just as heavy as mine. So with that being said, I just think that you need candidates who are going to run that are young, vulnerable, and honest, and willing to say, I'm in this with you, not I'm watching you suffer and you're just giving to me. It's not just a take.
I think it's all of that, and I think it's really being able to connect the dots for people and help them understand that the progress that we think we see, so everybody's like moving out to the suburbs in their McMansions, is not gonna insulate you from the loss of your rights and the loss of your humanity. And I think in a lot of ways as parents, we want to shelter our kids. We want them to not struggle. I didn't grow up struggling, but like when I had that baby at 19, my parents was like, oh, you grown now, like be grown. And I went, and I tell this story on my stump speech. I went from having an American Express my freshman year of college to being on food stamps within 2 weeks. If y'all need some ramen noodle recipes, I got you, because we was in the kitchen whipping, but that was hard. And most of those hardships were policy failures. When I was denied for TANF over 20-something times, I stopped counting, that was a policy failure. When I almost died on the operating table giving birth, like that was a policy failure. When my husband got pulled over for jaywalking across the street in Austin my junior year of college and had to empty out his pockets, I'm watching out the window like, what is happening? That was a policy failure. That was somewhere in politics. And what I always say is, listen, you might not be into politics, and I know it's cliche, but politics is absolutely into you. You opting out of voting is not gonna stop that election from happening. It's not gonna stop that person from getting elected. And I think it's part of that. And I also wanna just acknowledge Ms. Kim H here, yes, because she is doing something monumental in our community. Black beauticians and Black barbers literally lifted up our civil rights movement, and she is doing the work to bridge that gap and connection. So when she's in there in the salon laying hair, she's also talking about, hey, like, are you registered to vote? That's important, because I don't consider myself a politician. I Googled myself the other day and it had like politician next to my picture, and I was like, who can I call to fix that? That's weird. But as a politician now, you know, I don't get to be the organizer. I come off as a car salesman, right? Used car salesman. Vote for me so I can fix your problems. But hearing it from somebody like that is different. And I also want to acknowledge, well, I don't live in 18 anymore, but my future congresswoman for like my parents who's still in 3rd Ward. Love her. Hey, Erica. And hey, Sherman. And I also really gotta like shout out to him. So when I worked for the teachers union a few years ago, he was one of the only elected officials who consistently showed up for our community. We could call him to a meeting of 5 teachers, and he was there fully dressed with a proclamation in his hand, like making us feel heard and respected. And I never ever saw myself going to the State House, but I remembered that. And I was like, yeah, that's how you bridge the gap. That's how you talk to people.
And if you guys know Representative Ron Reynolds right here, he's going to have a blue folder for you, okay? Thank you I got several proclamations.
And you feel good getting that. You're like, it's all official. The seal is on there. You're like, all right, come on, Texas.
My mic. Okay, thank you. Okay, so before we go to the next audience, I want to go to audience interaction, and I want to make sure that Van, because obviously we have him here, and we want to pull all of his expertise out. So I want to open up the dialogue for any type of audience question. Who has a question for Van? Oh, perfect. Come on up. Right there.
Okay. Awesome. Hi, my name is Chanel. So my question is, in this generation, we do have a lack of community, right, as a race. I know when I was younger, I used to hear a lot about politics at cookouts and things like that. Would you have any advice on how we can unify our community in this day and age so we can learn how to bring up politics to our youth, because the youth is our future?
When you say unify, you mean unify in the intimate sense, like we're all sitting around talking and stuff like that? It's interesting because I think we have a lot of conversations. I think the most important thing, just in my opinion, and I don't talk to young people that much, okay? It's not my job. Uncle Van hate the kids, right? Is the kid like Uncle, like, you know, like it's like I don't like. I think I remember the 25-year-old version of myself, and I think that sometimes you have to. There's some life experience that you need to have before you've completely distilled your view of the world. I'll say this though. I'll say that we need to be a little bit more tolerant in the way that we have these conversations. Remember a while ago, Sexy Red went viral because she said that she was voting for Trump because Trump gave her $1,500, right? And everyone was so incredulous. everyone was so mad at her. It's like, she's so dangerous. It's like, either she your sister or she not. So either we're going to talk about this and we are going to endeavor into this in good faith, talking to a member of our community that has no idea what the fuck that they're talking about, right? Or we are going to hold everybody to a purity test to where everyone feels like they have to be on one accord for a conversation to take place. And the second part is not going to work. That's not what a community is. That's what a cult is. And so for me, I think one thing that we used to have at those cookouts is a diaspora of thought. Forget about an actual diaspora, right? When everybody's from all, I'm talking about a diaspora of thought, to where we all talk, we know that we love each other, and then we come out of it knowing a little bit more after it. So I think we need to be a little bit tolerant of each other when we mess up, when we go wayward, and like in these conversations, we need to actually approach them with some intellectual love. Yeah. It's great.
For anyone who does not have that skill set already, because it kind of sounds like we're dipping into EQ, what advice would you have for them in order for them to learn how to have that grace and to be able to facilitate these type of conversations?
It's a good question. I think it's difficult because I think right now everyone's being radicalized in a different way. You're being hardened, and your worth as a person is being litigated with every single opinion that you have, right? And so the first thing we have to do is be pliable. Like, I can't really get on somebody. Like, I'm past the point of explaining a lot of stuff to a lot of people. I don't like to do it anymore. I'll just give you a list of books and be like, all right, hit me up next year. But I do think that when someone has an idea that doesn't really mesh with yours, because even what we're talking about some ideological differences that are on the left. Like the Gaza thing was a gigantic cudgel between the leftist part of the left and the more moderate liberal side. And it remains that. But you need to be able to have a conversation with a kid that's protesting at their college that thinks that your presidential candidate is funding a genocide. You have to be able to talk to them and not write them off as stupid or uninitiated or anything like that. So it's like any other muscle, you got to build it. You know what I mean? Got to try. No problem. I like the green.
Okay, any other questions? Anyone else? Okay. This mic doesn't work. You're going to have to just talk loud.
No, it's fine. I'm from Louisiana too, so I can
Okay.
It's totally fine.
I like that.
My name is Megan, by the way. I wanted to first of all speak to what you guys mentioned earlier about like being raised kind of like in the voting process and how that kind of starts at home. My mom kind of did the same thing. Whenever she would vote, I was there in the voting booth with her back in the day when you could do that. And if I had questions, she would answer those. And my grandfather reading the newspaper every morning, like those kind of things really bred my love for politics and journalism. But I really want to. My question is for Van and Christian. I would like to hear. I know you just kind of spoke on how important it is to build those bridges and conversations with people who we don't always think alike. We don't always, but it's important to have these conversations. How would you guys speak to the Black men specifically in a post-Hillary era where we're looking at the possibility of a Black woman president for the first time who still, even if you think of who can or can't beat Trump, they still don't feel like they can relate to a woman being a leader. How would you speak to that?
So I have a cousin who I've had this exact conversation with. The first thing that I always do is try to appeal to, like, we all have a duty to the Black collective. Look, just like any other subgroup, each and every one of us is trying to move up socially, economically, individually, right? But I think one area for improvement is we have to have a greater commitment to the Black collective. And that means sometimes making decisions that are going to benefit your son or your daughter, even if in that moment you don't immediately see how it's going to benefit you. So that's the first thing I do. The second thing that I do is I just try to divorce the personalities away from the conversation. I mean, look, man, woman, cat, whatever, like at the end of the day, this person is about this and this person is about this, right? So like, take my cousin, for example. Bro, I know where you work. I know you want better wages. I know you want better health care, right? I've known you my entire life. I know you support the right to choose. You know what I'm saying? And trying to tie them to the issues and the positions that you know that they stand for, and because I think the worst thing you can try to do is shame them for those feelings, right? You know, we all have different kind of social capital, different education levels, but trying to have the conversation from a place of issues and from a place of understanding their commitment to the Black collective. And what I found is most of the homies who are not involved in the political stuff, they are very much, especially my age group, Black men, they are very much committed to the Black collective. They just don't understand how to be a meaningful participant, right? And so, they might spend their days every now and again thinking about how can I contribute? And then, I'm hanging out with them later on and they're like, Trump ain't that bad. I'm like, hold on, right? Like let's have a real conversation here. And I think when you kind of strip away the attacks, as Van was mentioning, you're not demeaning them, but you're trying to have a true conversation about what their issue base is. 9 times out of 10, we are not a monolith. We do not all see the world the same way. There are a few issues, though, because of America's original sin, because of how we've been marginalized in this country, where most of us agree, right? You're not going to find many Black folk out there who are like, we should never have reparations for Black. That's crazy, right? You're not going to find a lot of people who believe that. So trying to really tie to those issues is what I found to be the most effective way. I'll end with this. So I have a cousin who's a music producer out here. He's worked with a bunch of major artists. And when I tell you, I ran in 2020, this dude didn't vote for me. He was just very much I don't do the politics thing, right? Had a conversation, kept having conversations. He texted me the other day and said, hey, one of my artists is a big Trump dude, and I know that's harmful to what we got going on. But by we, he meant the Black collective. He just didn't know how to articulate it. He said, that's harmful to what we got going on. You send me some of them talking point joints so I can bang them up next time I see him. You know what I'm saying? So it's about building that trust, having that conversation. And as Van mentioned, social media has made us so judgy, so ready to dismiss our brothers and sisters, so ready to just completely mute people, right? And be unforgiving when they make mistakes. If somebody walked around with a camera following you all day long, it would be, you would be canceled 10 times over, right? So not approaching that way, but instead approaching in an inviting way that ties it to their issue base.
Yeah. So having the conversation earlier is very important. But I really have these conversations in the same way that I've had any other conversation. It was in a barbershop years ago, and we was all talking about the Saints, and there always got to be one dude in the barbershop that want to go against the grain. So he was like, we love the Saints. We talking about the Saints. And he I like the Eagles, just to get on our nerves. And I looked at him, I said, name the Eagles' entire D-line. Name the whole D-line. And he couldn't do it. I was saying, there's a challenge sometimes for you to actually show the nutrition of your opinion. And a lot of this stuff is vibes. You don't like Kamala, you don't know nothing about Kamala. Now, let's be open to have hey, I'm going to say, hey, why? Interrogate it. But as men, especially if nobody's around, it's a little different. You don't want to, embarrass somebody. But sometimes you got to challenge them a little bit. Sometimes you got to get them out of their body a little bit, and allow Black men specifically to feel some sort of, we talked about this last night, ownership in this. A thing that's happened is we don't feel very American. We don't feel like any of this stuff is really made for us. We don't feel any ownership of it. Quickly, my dad talked about this last night. I had a cousin and he was very tall and he used to wear the hand-me-downs of his older brother. Yeah.
He's so bougie, he forgot it was called a hand-me-down. I was
like,
you mean a hand-me-down?
He used to wear his older brother's shoes, okay? And he wear his older brother's shoes and he would just run through the shoes. His mama was just going crazy. She was like, we give him the shoes and he tear the shoes up in 3 weeks. My dad goes, so this is what we're going to do. We're going to give him his own pair of shoes. And so he's going to work with me for 2 weeks. And then after he works with me, he's going to buy his own pair of shoes. He's going to feel like he owns those shoes. That way, if those shoes are gone in three weeks, his Jordans are gone. He would take a toothbrush to him when they were to bring them back, right? So you got to feel like you own this, like this country is yours. A lot of times we get into talking a little bit like we're not real Americans. Everybody hates us. We're never a part of this. Nah, if you don't feel like you have any ownership or any stake in this country, you're really not going to be moved to do anything. So we have to remind Black men that they have a place in leadership, they have a place in stewardship, and they also have a place in just being participatory. That sometimes you can participate without centering yourself at all times. You like that one? Yeah, you like that? Yeah. It's a story. So yeah, and so I think we're having those conversations though. I really do.
Okay, so that's our time. I know. I got the.
I want one more question for the ladies though.
Okay, do we have time for one more question?
Yeah.
One more. Okay, all right.
You gotta plug something that's really important.
Okay, let's do something because this is about them more than us. So let's ask a question and then you can plug what you want at the end. But we want you guys to be heard. We want you guys to actually have tangible questions. What is it that you want to know? Or is it an issue that you have? Something. Yes, sir.
I understand everybody's talking about community. When we have these conversations, not to have them in a vacuum, to be inclusive. Right? Smiley used to be do a thing called State of the Black Community. The thing I liked about it was you had liberals and conservatives on this panel. But you were getting the thoughts and ideas of the spectrum of the diaspora, as you said. Are we willing to have those conversations today in that type of space? And if we have the conversations just here, everybody like-minded, are we really moving?
So I can answer that. And what I wanted to make sure I add to what I need you guys to lead with is there's always a lot of talk about presidential candidates. There are people in this room, if you raise your hand, that are down ballot candidates, that are local candidates. And if you talk to people, let's use a conversation I had at the barber shop waiting. A young man was like, I own duplexes. He got super excited. This is his way. He's living on one side. If you have a tenant that's not paying rent, you need to know who you're voting for because you're going to go before a local judge. So a lot of these conversations get lost in these narratives. But if you really want to talk to people, talk to them about child support, talk to them about landlord-tenant rights, talk to them about their streets, talk to them about the train, talk to them about environmental price gouging. Do you want to pay $18 for a case of water in the midst of a storm? If you want to argue with someone, notice that if you bring a local level conversation about what pisses them off, you will notice that people in this room, that's my plug, who are running for judicial seats, CD18 seats, what our county attorney does, you will realize that they are on the same page and they'll have more ownership. If you know what your county attorney does every week, day in and day out, you'll realize it's an easy argument. If you know who is going to be responsible for having shade at a park and why your park doesn't look like Levy Park, then you're going to talk to Lauren. So I think what we got to stop doing is staying stuck in these vacuums, because if we're going to be competitive in this state in 2 years, the president's gone. A lot of us aren't turning out because we stop arguing about Trump. And if we want to have an effective blue state, we got to keep having these conversations on a local problem issue. So let's stop with the Trump versus VP Harris and go to these issues that feel more close to home. That's my plug. That's where you can get a better diaspora of conversation with people, even in your debate. I'd rather you debate landlord-tenant rights on should people be evicted or should they pay the rent, and maybe come up with a conversation, because that's going to affect you a whole lot more.
Just on the plug, the brother running for Supreme Court place too, Deshaun Johnson.
Exactly. Thank you.
Yes, I'm definitely down to participate. And I mean, look, and within any diaspora, you have to be able to have different thoughts, right? Like I don't think we should be a monolith. And I say this as a member of a certain party. I don't think we should be a monolith of any party. I think part of the reason, though, why you don't really see some of those conversations happen anymore is because the black Republicans of mom and daddy days, these cats today is different, dog. Like, you know, they different. And, you know, even you take a character like Clarence Thomas, right? Clarence Thomas was from Chappelle's Show to anything. Clarence Thomas was like our foil. Like, man, look at this dude. He's a clown, right? Clarence Thomas kind of mild compared to some of these cats who are on Twitter now. And part of it is because it's not ideologically based. They're just trying to get a bag, right? They'll say anything to get a bag. So I say all that to say I'd be 100% down to have those conversations, but I think part of the growing hostility is because there are black folks who will take what are objectively, indisputably anti-black positions just to run up the follower count and make some money. And so I think that is adding to the hostility and the reason why it's harder to get in the room. But I'll get in the room with the Hodge twins, with any of those little goofy Twitter character guys. I'll talk to any of them.
I really want to do positive for the community. I just have a different idea how to get there.
Yeah, I'm down 100%.
And I think it's when you explain things to people. So I'm pretty progressive on a lot of issues, but what I tell people is it's not so much about our individual thoughts. It's about what the government should have the ability to do. Like, if you don't like abortion, cool, don't get an abortion, have that baby. But the state of Texas doesn't need to make that decision for you. You don't like gay marriage, good, don't get gay married. But the state of Texas should not be able to tell you you cannot get gay married. And so we can talk about those things, but once you move it out of that vacuum, well, like, these are my personal thoughts, good. Be as conservative on that hill as you want, but I don't need the government in my business in that way, and that's why I vote the way that I do.
All right. Okay. Love it. Love it. Thank you guys. So I want to obviously thank all of the panelists for giving us their insight and their expertise. And then also I want to encourage you guys, yes, make sure that you are tuning into the Higher Learning podcast and support Van as well. And make sure you tune in to Seat at the Table podcast that is streaming on all of the Fight for Democracy pages. And what I would also like is just everyone to kind of just give a salutation of goodbye, and this is how you can follow me.
Christian Menifee, I don't even think I know my social media handles. It's like just search Menifee on the social media. But I'm the Harris County attorney, and it's been a pleasure to be here tonight.
I'm Lauren Ashley Simmons. I'm the Democratic nominee for State Representative in House District 146. They clapping because I beat a real crazy person. Like, that's why. But anyway, I'm just, because I was like, dang. Oh, yeah, no, we did. We won twice. But I'm going to be humble. But my social media is LA Simmons, TX at 146. It's Twitter, X, Instagram, whatever. My campaign manager back there, you can email her if you need to talk to me, because my text messages are crazy.
Early voting starts October the 21st.
Yes.
My name is Lillian Alexander. Now she's so overdressed. 2 S's, Lillian Alexander on Instagram, and you'll find some voter education, some suits, and some kids. Thank you, guys.
And the kids.
Gotta have a baby.
At Van Lathan everywhere. Appreciate you guys.
And I'm Holly Cotton, HOLLYCOTTON _ HollyCotton.com. Thank you guys.